Hello, and welcome to another episode of Seven Story Podcast. I'm Natasha Kyler, and I'm here with today's featured author, Selina Violet. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I don't know what you'd like to know. I live in outside of Pittsburgh, PA. I have two sons and a couple of rescue pets. And when COVID hit, I decided that I was going to go for my author dreams since I didn't have an excuse not to write anymore. I had plenty of time. So I got started back in 2020 when we all got sent home.
And how did you originally start writing?
My third grade teacher had us all daily write in a journal. Sometimes she would give us a prompt on the board, and sometimes we were allowed to write whatever we wanted to. And I really enjoyed that time. And she would like read them and then make little comments, like if you'd gone on a vacation, and just it was fun to me. And that's where I got started writing.
That is so cute. I love when writers start young and they just kind of keep that passion going. And you said you had like the author dream and you were kind of putting that off. What was your dream, just to publish a book or to really give time to it?
I think everybody I talk to is like, oh, I'd like to write a book someday. And I think a lot of us sort of have this Disney fantasy type idea of what that's going to be like and how easy it's going to be. And when I got into it, it's a lot more work than people realize. And so statistics say that about 85% of people will say, I'd like to write a book, and only about 3% actually get to the finish line because it's not as easy as it looks.
Wow, I did not know that statistic. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket now.
Yeah,
um,
so if you make it to that 3%, I liken it to being like an Olympic gold medal winner. Not literally, but in the author world, I think for the low percentage that you have for people who actually finish. It's like a marathon runner or those people that do 100-mile marathon things or whatever. It's a lot. And I've learned a lot over the past 5 years, taken a lot of courses. And, one of the things I always appreciate is when other more seasoned authors are willing to share their experiences and bring on new authors as well.
I always appreciate someone who's willing to take on like that mentor kind of role and help guide the newer authors who are just like, I want to start and I really want to commit. I just have questions. I'm not entirely sure where to start. And it's always good to have like someone you can rely on.
Definitely.
And your trilogy, What We Can't Have, can you tell us about that?
I sure can. The original concept for my story was based on a poem that I wrote, and I had a couple of people say, that might actually make a good song. And so I approached a friend who had a lot more musical talent than I do. I like to sing in my car, but that's about as far as my musical talent goes. So I approached a friend about it, and that was sort of where the idea came from. And so Sydney and Austin are both in a college course together. They're about to graduate. They perform this song that they write for their class, and it changes their lives. And so the trilogy spans at least a decade for them from start to finish. And if you like When Harry Met Sally, it's a very back and forth slow burn.
Okay, it's so interesting. I'm interested in it. I'm definitely gonna check it out. um, and you said that it can either be read sweet Hallmark version or spicy HBO version.
Yes, I came up with a new concept. I call them hybrid romances. So as you're reading through the story, there is a page in the front matter of the book that explains it, but I have all of the spicy parts marked off at the beginning with little flames. And so if you prefer the Hallmark version, you just skip those sections. And it reads as a closed door romance. If you like the spice, just keep reading.
I love that. I love that you give readers the option because sometimes I don't want to read the spicy and sometimes I do. So I like that you can get a slightly different experience if you choose something.
Yeah, I have friends on a variety of the spectrum as far as spice that they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was having a couple of friends take a look at my first draft, that was one of the comments I got. Well, I really liked it, except for I didn't want to read the spice. And so I kept mulling that over, and it sort of just came to me one day. I know some authors actually do two versions of their book, one clean and one not. But I figured mine isn't overly spice laden, so it was easy to sort of separate that out.
I really do love that. I think it's definitely different. I feel like I've heard more of people doing two different versions of the book rather than just keeping it all within the same book. And so it's different. I like that. Um, so how did you come about choosing the title of not only the first book, but also the trilogy?
That's something a lot of authors get asked. And I don't usually start with a title in mind, but about 2/3 of the way through writing the first one, it sort of came to me. It's sort of like getting a gift from the tooth fairy or something. I don't really have a method to it, but I knew that I wanted it to be a series and not just a one-off. So I needed to come up with sort of an overall title for the whole series and then individual titles for each of the books individually. So that was sort of a concept that I had, because they spend most of the trilogy where they really want each other, but for whatever circumstances, they can't have each other. They do get a happily ever after at the end, I promise.
Okay. I love a good happily ever after.
If you don't give them a happily ever after, everybody's mad. So I did that.
Yeah, pitchforks outside your door. Why would you do this to me? Everybody loves a good happily ever after. And are there any parts or characters that are specifically personal to you, inspired by yourself or anybody in your life?
Well, Sydney is the main female protagonist, and I think in a lot of ways I relate to her. She is a plus-size girl, and she does have some struggle with how she views herself, because she has two very thin and beautiful sisters. But she doesn't let it dictate how she feels about herself and how she's going to live her life. But that does present some struggles to her, and so I relate with that quite a bit. But she's got a lot of spunk, and she's very brave and courageous, and I don't feel that way about myself most of the time. So it's not fully autobiographical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tend to inject certain parts of ourselves into our characters because that's just who we are. And so it's always interesting to hear how somebody does that and if they realize it at first or if they just kind of have that realization when I ask the question. Speaking of your characters, how do you come up with them? Are they spontaneous or are they meticulously planned? What's that process?
A lot of my characters, I get inspiration from people I've known. Not that I take every aspect of one particular person, but for example, one of my characters, she's their agent when they get a recording contract, and she's very by the book, business only. I don't mix that with my friendships. And I had a friend that was very much like that, very cut and dry, and you draw the line. So I get inspiration from people I know. Um, in the book I'm working on right now, there's a character in a nursing home that I kind of knew personally and thought was going to be a very interesting and entertaining character to add into the mix.
That's interesting. I love that. I love that a lot. And what do you hope readers take away from this series?
I just want people to enjoy Austin and Sydney and enjoy their journey. They really have some ups and downs over the course of the series, some good, some not so great, but I just I just love them, and I'm kind of sad that I've moved on to something else at this point. But I'm not necessarily writing for any kind of specific message. I just, they say to write for yourself and not to worry about the rest, and you'll find your tribe. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I'm looking for my tribe. And I think that because I now have the whole trilogy out, that's going to be beneficial, because a lot of readers, once they finish the first one, they're like biting their nails to get the second one, and so on in the series. I mean, I don't want to be waiting 2 years for the next part of the series. So I sort of staggered it, but I've released them all within the past year. So
That's amazing. And how long did it take you to release them all? I know you said you started writing in like 2020. So how long did that entire process take you?
um, I that's hard for me to quantify. I've had a lot of health issues personally. COVID really got me bad, and then I've had some other interesting things. Some can be blamed on COVID, some not so much, I suppose. But it took me probably a good 2 years to get all three of them where I wanted to get an editor to look at them and get them out into the world.
I hope that you're doing better now.
I am, thank you. Yes, I feel much better than I had been.
Okay, that's amazing to hear. Um, yeah, I'm always curious to know how long things take because I tend to mull over the smallest details and take my sweet time and procrastinate really. And so I always love hearing like you turned around 3 books in 2 years. That's amazing. Like it would take me 2 years to do just one. So that's really awesome.
Well, I think one of the advantages of self-publishing is that you can go at your own pace, that you're not beholden to a publisher that does all of these things behind the scenes for you, but it takes forever. And I think that's why I chose self-publishing, because I'm very impatient when I'm waiting for someone else to finish what they're doing so I can move on to the next step. So I really appreciated self-publishing until I actually started doing it. But now that I'm on my fourth book, it becomes a little easier. The first one was definitely a big learning curve as to all of the nuts and bolts that go into getting a book from the computer into your hand as a book. It's really a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned how you're a little impatient, and one of the things that uh, kind of drives you up a wall is the waiting part of it. And I wanted to just segue that into what is your favorite part of being a writer?
I think it's the flexibility, but that also has a caveat, because I think the last 3 weeks I've had life get in the way and not been able to write daily because I've had other obligations. But that also gives me the chance to take care of my kids. And, if I have a doctor's appointment, I can go. So the flexibility is really a plus, but you also have to have the discipline to sit down and write. And so yesterday was the first time in 3 weeks I'd actually sat in front of the computer and went, leave me alone. I have work to do, but I do try to write daily when I can. So
I feel you 1,000% on the discipline part of it. I agree. I love the flexibility. I love to just be like, yeah, I have this idea. I'm gonna sit down and write it. Oh, I have to go do this thing. That's fine. Diesel, please. My dog is having a tantrum. Um, but
Mine just came in to see what the noise was about.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But like you were saying, yeah. You made me lose my train of thought. I'm sorry.
We're talking about the flexibility.
The flexibility, yes, and the discipline. The discipline is definitely a little difficult because sometimes I don't want to write, but I know I need to because I have deadlines to meet, self-imposed deadlines, but deadlines to meet nonetheless, and I want to actually have progress towards the book. So, how do you go about making sure you really make time for it when you can?
Yeah, because again, I mean, I didn't really start doing full-time author work until COVID because I had 2 little kids I was raising, full-time job, and there are a myriad of reasons why I don't have time to write. And so you really do have to set aside time to be able to accomplish the things you want to. And, like I just said, I'm not always successful at it on a daily basis, but I think I win more often than I don't. So I keep moving forward. As long as you keep moving forward, you're doing better, way better than anybody sitting on the couch watching Netflix.
Yeah.
Although they have my heart too. There have been some really good Netflix series I've watched, but you have to know when to put down the remote too.
Yeah, you have to know when you've had enough consumption and now it's time to create.
Mm-hmm.
What does a typical day in your life look like as a writer since you're full time?
Usually I get up, I have breakfast, and then I crack open my emails and see what I need to tend to. And once I get that accomplished, then I work on whatever chapter's next on my outline. I use a great software tool called Plotter. And since I do like to have some idea of where I'm going and not just fly by the seat of my pants, and I've used that for the last 2 books I've written, and I've found that that's been very helpful in keeping track. Before that, I was using 3x5 note cards, and each chapter was on a note card. And when you get 50 of them spread out on a table, it gets overwhelming a little bit. So when I saw that Plotter could do some of those things for me, and I can rearrange things, and it makes it a whole lot easier. So usually I check on where I'm at in my process for writing. And I also have spreadsheets where I keep track of character names and what books they've been in, because for the trilogy, some of the characters have overlapped and been in more than one book. So, and I don't like to reuse names if I can help it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Did I answer your question? I feel like I went off on a tangent.
No, that's perfectly fine. We welcome tangents here. Tell me all of your thoughts about writing. That's what we're about here. So we welcome tangents. We welcome yappers. Yeah. You kind of started answering my next question, which was like, walk me through your process from ideation to outline a final product, because you started talking about how you use Plotter and the spreadsheets. Is there anything else that is
so once I have like the first draft done, I usually let it sit for at least a week before I go back to it to sort of give my brain a break. And then when you come back at it with fresh eyes, then I work on self-editing, checking grammar, spelling, listening to it out loud on the computer is super helpful, because I've actually found errors that way that word and spell check or whatever doesn't pick up, because it's like, what's that word? Like, shoot, I can't think of the word, but like it's the same, wound, like a wound on your arm, or wound, like I wound a top, same thing, but it's not going to catch it as a misspelled word if it's one or the other. stuff like
Right.
that. But I do that, and then I do have a professional editor that also reviews and gives me notes. And then I go back and do more rewrites. And we go back and forth a few times. And when we think it's ready, then it goes to formatting. And I usually start working on the cover after the first draft is finished. So I'm kind of working on multiple things at once because I want the cover to be ready when the formatting's done and we can take it to print and get proofs. And that's the most exciting mail I get. When I get my first proof, I'm like, oh my gosh, all that work, I finally see it in my hand.
Proof copies are so amazing. It's like, oh, my baby, I worked so hard on this. We love seeing like the product actualized and in physical copy, because working on your laptop is cool, but once I get it, it's like, oh yeah, I was actually doing something. It was all worth it.
Right.
So there's really nothing like that feeling. I want to ask you my favorite question, which would be, what's the most unhinged thing you've written in your trilogy? This is a safe space. We listen, judge.
Honestly, I really don't have much that's unhinged per se. The most scandalous thing I can think of is that in the first part of the trilogy, the two main characters end up doing impromptu skinny dipping, which could be scandalous for some people. I don't know, but it's yeah, I don't think there's much else that would be shocking to anyone.
Impromptu skinny dipping, a little scandalous, nothing too crazy. And now I want to ask you, what does success look like for you as a writer? Like, how do you define that for yourself?
I want to sell 1 million copies of my book. I don't know that that's I'm hoping it's an achievable goal. And I know it is, and you can do that. But I also know that it takes a lot of work to get there. And that also, I love statistics, but most authors don't start to see any, like, I can quit my other job type success until they've got at least 5 or 10 books. So they have a back catalog. And so I'm working on book number 5 right now. But hopefully within the next year or so, I'll start to see and have more of a tribe and have people that are excited about my books. I think that's one of the best things when readers reach out to an author if they've liked a book, because that truly is, that's like gold to us. And it helps keep us going because there's so much negativity out there. And with social media, there's a lot of comparison. And that didn't used to be the case because you didn't know what every other person was doing. But if you get on threads, especially, can be very damaging to your psyche. You know, I've looked and I really appreciate when other authors have success. Please don't take this the wrong way. But when I see someone else has gotten 100,000 page reads in a month, I'm like, so I know I can do it, and I just don't know when I'm going to get there myself. And so that's sort of, I sort of go back and forth. I don't spend all of my time on social media because of those types of things, because it really can wear on you when you're watching everybody else have success and you're still kind of struggling or haven't gotten your footing, don't have a big readership at that point. But it's also proof that you can do it. So you can kind of go both ways on it. You can look at it as a positive too, that so this is achievable. I'm not just, you know, trying to get $15 million for my next movie or whatever. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes. You said a couple different things that I want to talk about a little bit.
Sure.
You said you want to sell 1 million copies of your book. Is that one specific book or like a mass total of 1 million copies of all of your books? Like, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I would be happy with a mass of like my whole catalog. I'm
Okay.
not necessarily going for one specific book, although that would be great too. And it's true then also that once you start getting readers, then they'll read other things that you've written coming down the line. I know I have authors that anytime they come out with something new, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to read that. Um, I have one, what is it? It's Jill Shreve, I believe. I have her next arc sitting on my nightstand. I'm like ready to dive in. Like, but you have work to do today before you get to read. That's my reward at the end of the day. And I firmly believe that as an author, you need to be a reader also. You can't do one without the other. And I think that everything I read makes me a better author. And it's not just about going to author workshops and writing retreats or whatever, but it's about seeing what everybody else is doing, because whatever you read shapes who you become as an author. So when people ask me, like, well, who do you write like? Well, I don't write like anybody else, but I write like all of the authors and things that I've read over the years that have influenced me. And, the authors and stories that have spoken to me. Like, if you ask me what my favorite book is, I'd probably tell you Where the Sidewalk Ends by Shel Silverstein. And that was one that, as a kid, I had like all of those poems memorized because I loved that book so much. So those are the things I think about when I, think about, well, who do I write like? Well, so there might be a little bit of Shel Silverstein in there. I love Beverly Cleary, Encyclopedia Brown. I'll read just about anything John Grisham writes. In fact, I have his new true crime thing that he's ventured into that I'd really like. But my to be read pile is about as tall as the Empire State Building.
It never ends. It
Well,
never ends.
I get books on my Kindle, and then I get physical books. I probably have 500 or 600 books but I guess I could say that I'm a book dragon then. I can't be a bookworm because I spend too much time writing. But I do like to collect books that I would like to read if I live long enough to do that, which I probably won't. Not with that. If I started reading now, I'd probably have to be like a vampire and be like 400 years old if I didn't get anything else on my list.
It's the never-ending TBR. It's always growing. It's like, oh, you're dropping a new book. Oh, you're dropping a new book. Add, add, add. Oh, I really like this author. They have this. Add, add, add. Never ends. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to just take this time to give you the floor and talk about any upcoming releases and where people can find you.
Well, I do have my own website. It's selinaviolet.com. I do have an Instagram account and I'm on Threads, but I'm not religious about social media at all. I'll be consistent for three or 4 weeks, and then I forget, and I forget again. But I do have on my website, I have all my books listed, and then I also have events that I'm going to be attending. At the end of the month, I'm participating in the Greater Pittsburgh Festival of Books at Carnegie Library at their main branch, and it's going to be huge. There's going to be at least 100 authors there with our books, and I'm really excited about that. I've never had to order so many books for an event before, but I think it's exciting to be accepted as an author there. And so that's one of the things I'm doing. And then there's a local university, Youngstown State University, and I'm going to be in their arts festival as well. So I do have listed places if you're nearby that I would love to see you and chat with you. And that's like the best feeling, is when you can engage with the people who are reading your books.
Absolutely. And you started mentioning that earlier when you said like getting messages. It's a great feeling. It's like, oh, you really resonated to the point where you want to reach out to me. I love that. Top tier. But that's it for this episode of Seven Story Podcast. Thank you, Selina Violet, for joining us and telling us about your trilogy, What We Can't Have. Check out that. And until next time, I'm Natasha from Seven Story Podcast.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for being here.